Hey everybody, let's go check on them seedlings and see how they're doing. So last time we brought you along for planting them, and well, you can judge for yourself how we did. I think you'll find we didn't do too bad. So we've got a bunch of stuff all up already, and you'll see that shortly. But for the most part, it's done pretty good. Let's take a look. All right. So right up front here, you can see we have radishes, and then back there we have spinach coming up. And then here we have our lettuce, which is mostly like a romaine mix. And then in the back, you can't see very well, but right there, those are our onions, the green bunching onions. So those are coming up. And you can see here, we have our butter crunch lettuce coming up back there. And then some herbs coming up here. So there is some basil coming up, and then we got 2 pots of that. You can see some coming up there as well. And then this is our dill. That's coming up as well. And then we have a few here that aren't coming up. And some of these were older seed, but you can see there's a little one in there. So hopefully that's something. And we're still holding out hope on a couple of these that they'll come up. You can see we have a couple of little things coming here. And I can't remember what all these are, but for the most part, you can see we have kale up. This is kale here, these couple of rows. And then in the back, we have more kale and then Swiss chard. So for the most part, we're doing pretty good. Everything's coming up. We're growing a cat down here, and he's growing quite nicely, especially in the belly region. Oh, there goes a child on a sled. What do you know? So yeah, everything's going pretty good. And you can see we're keeping the light nice and low, so things aren't getting too leggy. The radishes are maybe a little more leggy than I'd like, but not too bad. And we're getting a decent amount of light coming in this window, especially in the morning hours, which is helping to supplement some of the light as well. So I'll just bring you along quickly. I'm gonna thin some of this spinach. You can see back here, the spinach has a bunch where there's doubles or triples or quadruples or lots more than that coming up on the same thing. And we really want to put this down to 1 per spot so that it doesn't get too crowded and so that we get a nice harvest. And then, you know, so far I've only had to water it once since the initial watering, so haven't been going through water too much, and it's still damp right now. Usually wait till, you know, it starts to look a little more dried out before you water it again. So you want to keep it damp, but not, like I said in the last video, damp but not wet, not drenched. So let's thin some of these out. Okay, so there was a couple spots there where I had to fill in where one wasn't growing. And otherwise I think I thinned everything out pretty much. There might be a few that'll come up in the next few days that I'll have to thin out again. So it's always a checking, kind of back in on things and adjusting as you go. I also try not to thin too early, so that it gives me a chance to kind of pick and choose which plant looks the strongest and healthiest and is going to do the best. And then I also try to keep the plant sort of more towards the center of the pot so that the spacing stays more consistent, as it should be across all the little pieces, since we're dealing with kind of square inch gardening here. So there's a couple of spots I saw where things were just starting to come, so I left those and I didn't transplant anything in those. And otherwise everything looks pretty good. So there you go. And then I think I saw a radish in here somewhere. Ah, yes, here it is. Little extra radish plant. There it is. Pop him out as well. It always feels so wrong pulling out plants. But the nice thing is if you pull them out right and you preserve the root, you can always transplant them into a different pot if you have the space to do that. So still some work to do yet here on these lettuce plants and getting those to come up a little more. So I won't thin anything too much. You can see I did thin some of the onions back there a little bit too, you might have seen. But otherwise I think I'm going to let the rest of this stuff, some of the Swiss chard way back there needs to be thinned as well. I'm definitely going to only do one plant of those per container, because they tend to get fairly good sized. And then the same with the kale. I'll probably only do one plant of those per container as well. So we'll thin those out pretty soon. So that is the update for today. As you can see, things are going pretty good. We'll bring you along and update further. Maybe give it a couple of weeks or a week before we post another video on this, just so you can kind of see things as they grow. And then we'll talk about how we maybe move things around or space things as they need more room. But so far so good. Things are looking great, and we'll keep you bringing you along for the journey. So we'll see you in the next one.